Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. This is episode 37. Wow, already here,
37. The old 37, eh?
Yeah.
Pretty big.
Well, I mean, it's the next one. Last week was 36, and you were marveling at that, so...
Well, I marvel every week. Every week, I feel like the intro is me saying, wow, look how big this number is, or at least recently.
Yeah, it's just, it's almost like half like, wow, I'm really impressed that we made it this far, and half like, look at what I did, 37 episodes under my belt, I get it, I feel you.
It's more like just, I can't believe that there's 37, like, yesterday I was on iTunes, and I couldn't believe that it said that all of our content was about, like, 1.6 days.
That's nuts.
Worth of us talking to magicians and to each other about this fine art that we call magic. We call it. We call magic.
Yeah,
that's what it's called.
There's many different names, I guess.
No.
Who did we talk to this episode? We've been talking for another 2 minutes before even mentioning the guest.
Oh, man.
We suck at this.
Gosh. Chris Funk.
What? Like Wizard Wars and Penn and Teller, Chris Funk?
That's the one, Chris Funk.
Man, he seems like he would know a lot about designing a show and like how to personalize it.
Wow, not to call you out, bro, but you were there, I think.
Was I? Oh man, I really wanted to see like I was just low key smart and just knew what he would talk about. But you're right, I was there talking to him.
You were totally
about how to make
there.
magic your own and design your own show. Damn.
Sorry to bust your bit there, brother, but you were there. You know. Yeah, no, it was a great episode. He was really awesome, and he gave us some really practical advice about
styling your hair and
No. Really practical advice about how to make your show your own, and that how ridiculous it is any other way, right? So that's it's always good to be put in perspective about the difference between your own show and a mashup of someone else's or other people's stuff. And he really pointed out the difference and how to start making your show your show. So it was a great episode, and instead of us continuing to talk mindlessly and endlessly as if we do not already have too much airtime on the internet, here is Chris Funk with episode 37.
Enjoy.
Discourse in Magic is the #1 place to improve everything about your magic except for your tricks. So topics like theory, performance, comedy, business, media, theater, and everything else. But we are not talking about how the tricks work. That's right. Get your pinkies out of the deck. Put away that flash paper, because we are talking about everything else. Today, we have a very exciting guest in the house. We are here with the wonderist Chris Funk. How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Not too bad. How's everything? How's life?
Life is amazing. We're in the middle of a very busy season right now, so things are great. Performing lots, traveling lots, doing what I love to do.
So we will jump in the way that we usually start our episodes, which is to find out, how did you get into magic?
Oh my gosh. Well, I always loved magic. I don't know exactly when I started to love it. I think I watched a Doug Henning special on TV when I must have been 5 or 6, and it blew my mind. So I was totally just captivated by magic. I would go see David Copperfield when he came through town, and all the other magic shows that kind of toured through. But I didn't know that you could learn it. Like I guess you could say I was a bit of a sheltered kid. At the age of 16, someone taught me a card trick, and that was kind of it. It was game over. I was a bullied kid, so I didn't really say too much to people, but as soon as I learned magic and would stop to show people something, it was the reaction was amazing. It kind of helped me burst out of that bubble a little bit, and taught me a lot about things. So I became addicted instantly as soon as I learned that first card trick, and the rest is history. I just kind of kept going, reading books, watching videos, buying tricks, and putting myself in awkward positions to learn as much as I could, pretty much.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
that seems to be kind of a trend. We do hear a lot of different backstories, but it's quite often couldn't really talk to people, learned magic, developed social skills. It was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
So.
But something that often happens, which I just think is interesting to touch on, is that a lot of the times when people pick up magic exceptionally young, because they're like very much wooed by, you know, all the methods and all the tricks out there and whatever, it almost feels like the younger someone is interested in magic, the more of a magician's magician they are, and the less of a performing magician they are. So it's just interesting because the more, and obviously the opposite seems to be true. The people that say that they got into magic in their, like, you know,
20s,
late 20s or 30s, they are like performers, you know? They tend to be like really, really getting gigs and not worrying about the little tiny stuff. So it's interesting because, you know, you seem like you're a performer. You're performing way more for real people than you are for magicians, but you sort of got into it with that childlike thing. So
Yeah, you're smack dab in the middle.
Yeah.
what I'm wondering is, was there something about the theater of it all or something else that enthralled you?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, my parents put me in music when I was 4 years old, so performing on stage was something I was used to already. I would do Royal Conservatory exams. I was in different orchestras. I played concert halls in youth orchestras, so I was really used to being in front of people, even though I was the shy kid. So I guess you could say that it really did enthrall me, that whole performance element of it, and yeah, that really excited me. Just kind of being up and performing something for someone that wasn't music. It was nice that this was a little bit different.
Yeah.
So.
The reason why I brought it up is because one of the things that we've been chatting about this month, with the theme all about you know, putting together a show and crafting a show, is the idea of theatrics. And it seems like a lot of your performances contain, you know, very serious theatrics. It's not just, and mind my simplicity of this, but it's not just like, you know, a mentalist with a book and a board and telling you what you think and then putting it down. You know, there's a violin, there's music, there's floating things. You did the lean for quite a bit of time. You know, there's, you know, you're really engaging with your audience and doing out of the box things. So that was why I brought up theater. Can you touch a little bit about that? Touch on that, I mean?
Yeah. I find that we're kind of in a day and age right now where you have the world at your fingertips, but you also have technology to blame for a lot of people not paying attention to stuff. So you have to really approach your show, your performance, or your techniques, or kind of the overall story that you're telling from a different angle. You need to start incorporating different elements that kind of trigger different things in people. So I've always made sure that when I'm writing something, that I'm not just doing a standard trick and then putting the props away, because in all honesty, someone can just go online and figure that all out instantly, right? You got to take them on a journey. You got to teach, you know, what am I trying to say? You got to tell them a story. So I try to find all the different ways that I can do that. That's unique, that means something to me, and that really spell out who I am. It's very important for me that when I do something, that I don't ever do the standard way of doing it. If I were to read a manual or something like that, which I rarely ever do, I'll very often kind of come up with a premise or a principle and I'll just put it together without looking at actually how it's done, because I don't want to do it the standard way. I want to make sure that I approach it from a creative side of things where I can incorporate live music or incorporate something that's a little bit different, just to tell a bit of a different story and you know, surprise the audience a little bit.
How important do you think sharing yourself and all of the different parts of you is in terms of a performance?
I'd say that adding a bit of you is the most important thing you could do to a show. Otherwise, you're doing the same thing as someone else.
Right.
I mean, if I was to just do a rising card trick, well, heck, how's that different than someone else doing a rising card trick? You pick a card, you put it in, it rises out of the deck. What I did is, with that routine, is I took a true story, which at 16, I quit violin. I learned my very first card trick. So it's a true story about me getting into magic. It has a piece of my history, which is the violin. It totally takes it to a whole new level and makes it interesting and funny in ways that you can't really make it interesting and funny, right? Like it's not a rising card trick anymore. All of a sudden it's this story about me, about what I do, and people they're captivated by that a lot quicker than, hey, pick a card, now watch this.
It's an entirely different piece
Yeah.
of theater.
Because people are there, like, you're the focus of the attention, and if you're taking the time to connect on, like, a genuine memory and a genuine feeling, then of course people are going to be more enthralled with the story of it and in turn the magic of it.
I would say that I try to do as little as possible of stuff that has nothing to do with me. So I know that sounds kind of narcissistic.
That's great. That's good advice.
You know, I don't just go and do a cut and restored robe trick. I would never do that. I would never go and just do a linking ring trick. I would never do anything like that in my show, because unless I'm able to make it about me and take a bit of me and put it into there to make something unique about it, that's really, it's my show. Like, it has to be me. It has to, otherwise I'm just kind of getting lost in the mix of things. Having said that, though, it makes things very hard to write a new show, because it's hard to write a new bit if I know I want to do a certain trick, but I can't put me into it. It doesn't go into my show. I don't write it. So I've created a bit more of a challenge by having such specific criteria. But at the same time, when I do a show, that's what separates me from a lot of the other people in my area who just do a show which is trick after trick after trick after trick.
And I'm with you 100% that you need to, make yourself original, make yourself special, and you need to do things that are special and different, and especially, it's not just about, for a lot of the time I was thinking about, what could I do that's just so different that it would be different. But I really think that a big piece to the puzzle is what would be different but very me. How can it resonate with yourself? How do you take a trick that's, we get these tricks delivered with a given method and basically a given presentation, and then an asterisk at the bottom that says, you should come up with your own presentation. How do you find a trick like that, decide whether or not it's for you, and then add something to it that makes it for you?
Well, I guess the first thing that I do is I don't buy a trick. So I think about what I want to take place on stage. I think about the method of how that's going to work, and then I piece it together. So I honestly don't remember the last time I bought a trick.
I'm with you.
To put it into the show. So that's a really hard thing for me to do. Like the rising card, I'm going to go back to that again. I didn't just buy a rising card and throw it into my show. I've created the entire method behind that rising card to make sure that it worked within the realm of what I wanted to take place on stage.
So then, if the question isn't how do you turn a trick into something that you want to do on stage, which is, I think that was a very insightful answer, then the question then becomes, how do you decide what to do on stage? How do you pull from this oyster, I was going to say the world is your oyster, but how do you pull from the world of possibilities to come up with some impossible thing to put on your stage?
I guess I think about what story do I want to tell. So the show that I'm doing right now, I've been doing it for about 1.5 years, and I've always thought to myself, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, and I want to do this on stage. Some of them I haven't been able to do because of methods up until recently. So, I find a way that it works and I can start to throw it into my show. And then I start to connect the dots. I think about, why am I doing this? So I now have the effect that I want in my show, but why am I doing it in my show? How does it make sense? How do I take my audience on a journey from A to B to C and so on? So I think about why. I always ask myself, why am I doing this? What do I want to tell them and why? And that's usually how I start coming up with the premise that I'm going to deliver with the routining of that actual effect. A great analogy that I use is, imagine you go to a movie. You're in the theater. You don't know much about it, but the lights dim, it starts, and let's say, it starts off kind of, it's got like a Jaws opening to it, like the old movie Jaws. And all of a sudden, as one of the cameras about to cut from one scene to another, it instantly goes to the Matrix, and you start watching the Matrix for like 5 minutes. And then from the Matrix, all of a sudden, it cuts camera angles, and you're watching an animated movie from Disney. And all of a sudden, you realize that this movie is 20 movies that are put together, and it doesn't make any sense. That is the average magic show that people are creating in this world. They don't think about why. What story am I telling them, and why? So I make sure that once I have the tricks that I want in my show, I start connecting the dots of why am I doing it. And I have a big wall in my office that's painted a chalkboard, and I will stand there for hours, and I'll just write down my ideas, and I'll draw lines of how they connect, and I'll really try to connect the dots so that I know how to write my script around that to tell the story effectively, to get across what it is that I want to say and why.
That's awesome. It's great advice, and I also think that it's great perspective for the approach. It's very difficult when magicians looking to create, maybe their first show or their second show or whatever, and they're trying to make it special, to sort of go from the expression of oneself and what do I want to say and why, and then evolve into the magic that takes place and then connect the dots, is, I think, a better way to do it than to, look at all the tricks you can do and then try to come up with some weird linking thing that doesn't make it look like you went to see 7 movies at one time.
Yeah, so, that visual that you just gave is actually sort of like, when I think, how do I design a show? This is the first time someone's given me an answer where I'm like, that's how you design a show. Because when you think about, like, you said it yourself, your storytelling, and like authors, they have all their different ideas and plot points and things on these giant maps and storyboard out what they should do, which is something I've never actually tried to do for my show yet. So,
and there comes a time in one's magic which is happening early and earlier, where you become a competent magician, and what that means is you can problem solve as to how to do things, and we're all afraid to take the leap into that area, because that area means we're no longer buying tricks from other people and executing them and maybe adding our own spin, but we are deciding what we want to do and step by step working out a way to express that thing.
Yeah.
And it's a big change, because we turn from performers and, the actors to someone else's direction, the direction that we read in the book or watched on the DVD, and we turn into artists and creators. And it happens very quickly.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we're on the side of creating. So you mentioned the idea of, you said, like, once I have the idea, then I can script it. Mm-hmm. So where does scripting come in to the process for you? Does it happen near the end, once you sort of have the A goes to B, goes to C, goes to D, and then you make it happen? Or is it almost part of the selection process to weed out ideas that can't come up with valid scripting?
It's actually a bit of both. Sometimes one outdoes the other depending on what stage of the show I'm at. So sometimes, at the very end of it, I'm scripting, and then I realize, okay, this bit doesn't work, so it's got to go. Or sometimes I come up with a really cool premise, that's a cool script, I'm going to try to, finagle that into this show. So they kind of have different roles, I guess, at different points throughout the whole process. But I find that the best thing that I've done is I come up with a show title, and this is actually a really cool concept that Eric Anderson, I learned from him about 9 years ago at a lecture that he did. And we don't need to get into the selling portion of your show, but it's so important to title your show, to give your show a name, because that is like a movie title. Otherwise, it's like, let's go to a movie. Which one? I don't know what it's called. Well, you have nothing to look forward to, right? You have nothing to expect. As soon as you have a title, though, you have a premise. You have something like a through line, a backbone, the glue that holds the show together. And now you can start bouncing your criteria off that even. So that's kind of the first thing that I do, is I try to create a show title that allows me to yes or no a lot of the tricks that go in there, and then it also helps me kind of deliver the script a little bit better. Sometimes the script is very early in the stage, and sometimes, even right now, the show that I'm doing, there's a couple bits of the script where I'm not happy, so they almost change every show.
Right.
Because I'm just trying out new things. So that can be an ongoing thing as well.
That's awesome. It's awesome because I think that's stellar advice because it helps you stay on point.
Yeah.
But it's advice that we've had come up over and over again, almost said in different ways. There's an interview that's going to come out after yours with a very prominent magician who his advice was, the same thing. He had a starting point of the title to his show, and that was a great way to see if other things fell in line. Our previous interview with a local Toronto magician named James Allen, he mentioned the idea of, defining yourself as a magician and then new effects and new ideas you can sort of bounce off of your self-definition to see if it matches up with you. And so I think that that's super, super valuable. Can you dive into what script writing is like for you and get as detailed as you want into the process? And the reason I mention it is because script writing seems to be the kind of thing that all the best magicians recommend it, all the novices don't do it, and no, really, right?
Yeah.
All the best recommend it, all the novices don't do it. And it would be nice to get some sort of advice to maybe a starting point or maybe a way to start scripting that doesn't feel so disconnected. The difference between sitting at home, drinking a coffee, typing on your computer versus being on a stage, and sharing your feelings, right?
Yeah. Script writing is, it can be a big challenge. For me, it's a big challenge. So I've made sure that I have two friends that know me very well. So they know kind of my character on stage. One of them actually is my assistant, my personal assistant. So he does all the AV setup, tear down at all my shows and everything. So he's also a great writer as far as just, putting words together, maybe not necessarily scripting, but I make sure that I bounce concepts off of these two guys that kind of help me go into the direction that I want, because it's very easy to get lost in your own thoughts. It's very easy to all of a sudden step outside of the criteria that you've created for yourself, and they kind of help you keep things within, check type of a thing. And then I just kind of spitball it with them, and I'll say, this is what I'm thinking. They'll be like, that's good. And what if you did it like this? And it's like, well, that's a good idea. And then I could say something like this, and then we go like this. And they're like, that's stupid. And then, you have someone that calls you on stuff.
Let me ask, are they magicians? Are they...
One of them is, one of them isn't. And I think that it's important to make sure you have, if you do have people that help you with scripting, you want to get people out of magic thinking and sometimes into just creative thinking.
Yeah, that's something we preach, I think, is like consulting with lay people is so valuable, and a lot of magicians are afraid to do it.
Do you only consult these people on your scripting? Is it as the show as a whole, or are they just kind of like friends and you share sort of everything you're working on and get ideas bounced off?
At this point, it's more just premises that I'm consulting on. Ultimately, when you get to a certain point where you're writing a good show, you really have to believe your gut instinct about things. And I've learned over the last few years that I know what I know, and it's gotten me to where I am today. So I need to believe in myself when I write something. And I'll have people say, that's not really good. It's kind of a dead point in your show. And then I'll do the show, and all of a sudden that dead point is getting great laughs and awesome moments with the audience. Well, that's their opinion, and I have to just trust my gut instinct. So I make sure that I bounce the ideas off, I consult, but I always, double check them with, what do I think? How do I feel about this? Because ultimately, it's me up on stage presenting the show, and I'm the only one affected, nobody else. So you gotta always, check it against your gut, I guess.
No, and I think that's super valuable because we often get wrapped up in the advice of others, and this you sharing that you should be bouncing your ideas off of friends or both inside and outside of magic almost lends people to think that they need a team to create a show. And I think that what you just said helps cap that off and say, no, you don't need a team to create a show. Outside opinions are also very good because when you live in your own world, who knows what you create? But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're the one up there, you're the one getting credit and also getting,
the opposite,
whatever that is.
Yeah. Discredited.
You're getting all those things, so you need to be the final decider.
Exactly.
I think that's for sure.
Yeah. Like my booking manager, for example, hates one bit in my show. And every time he sees me perform live, he's like, you really gotta change that up. And he's seen my show so many times now that he's on the inside, so he thinks differently. And that's one of those moments where I have to take that against my gut instinct. He's seeing it for the 60th time, whereas the audience is experiencing it for the first time.
Interesting. How important, just because you mentioned 60th time, how important is it to, let's say someone builds a show, they feel okay about their show, they scripted it, the things fit together a little bit, but if they feel that it could be better. And obviously this is all circumstantial, but is it better to tear it down and make a show that's more like you, or do it 100 times and learn your strong and weak points? And do you know what I mean?
I do. I think that's a hard question to answer, simply because when I rolled out the show that I'm doing right now, after the very first show, there was 3 things that I instantly cut.
Right.
So it's kind of tricky because there's other things that a year and a half later I'm only just changing now. So it's kind of tricky to answer that.
Well, it almost sounds like the size of the things that you're willing to add and remove change as you get deeper into your show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at the end, you're trying to switch one line or one word or a couple words of scripting, maybe exactly where you're standing during a certain point. Whereas at the beginning, you could add or remove an effect entirely based on just saying, it didn't really fit, and that's it.
Yeah.
Put something else in.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. So let's chat a little bit about magic on TV. You've been on some of the biggest magic stages that television has offered, and you've done a stellar job.
Thank you.
Let's chat a little bit about that. So what was it like? What was it? Did it feel like an awesome big break in your career, or did it feel like, the appropriate thing happening at the appropriate time?
I would say the first one was a huge surprise. For years I've been getting emails about
And
TV
that you're
shows.
talking about Wizard Wars?
Yeah, Wizard Wars, sorry.
Okay, yeah, just double checking.
Before that, I always got these emails from like YTV looking to go on this kids show where you try to impress the kids, and if you don't impress them, you get slimed. And I'm like, forget that. I'm not going on that garbage. Like, I have a career that
I have
need
a
to look out
violin.
for.
This is like...
Yeah. So I got the email for Wizard Wars, and I read it, and I'm like, whatever. And then I read it again. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't like a typical email. And so I emailed the producer back. I said, hey, can you give me more information? This is my website. Have a look. He emailed me back within 30 seconds saying, you're exactly what we're looking for. Please, please, please submit your name. So I submitted my name, and I went through the whole video interview process with the production company. And to my surprise, I made it on, which is insane. In fact, what's the date today? December 12th. 3 years ago today we filmed.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's crazy. So I went through the process. I made it. I don't know how I made it, but I made it over 250 other magicians who auditioned live in LA. They flew me down. We did the test pilot for Wizard Wars, and it was one of the craziest, awesomest experiences of my life. It was 2 days of 16-hour filming that totally wrecked me. But I mean, I'm eating lunch with Penn and Teller, and Justin Flom and I are chatting magic backstage, and Ricky Lax is there. Like, you just meet all these awesome people, like this little guy from Winnipeg, Manitoba, all of a sudden just kind of hobnobbing with these guys. And it was just a really, really awesome experience where I could let my approach to magic shine. I don't do a lot of videos. I don't do the quick little close-up stuff. Like, my whole presentation or my my whole concept of magic is to perform and entertain and blow them away all at the exact same time. So it was a really cool moment where I got to just kind of show them who I am and what I do, and it opened the doors to going back to do the actual season premiere for Wizard Wars, and then eventually Fool Us, which eventually got me onto America's Got Talent this year.
Yeah, and I think those are pretty much all the dream stages for the magician, right? So it's really awesome to see a Canada guy, but just anyone. It's awesome to see a magician get great at putting on awesome television. And it's something that we've spoken about a lot with a couple of guests, where maybe who knows how the first experience is. I mean, it sounds like it was epic, but you get better and better at putting on those amazing clips, and it looks like mentioned. I visited your website, which is a beautiful website,
top notch.
And it looks like those beautiful clips are proving to be incredibly valuable.
Yes, they are. They really are.
So that's really good to know. One of the things that we touched on in some of the episodes before, especially one with Wes Barker, was he said that you often think that you're ready for to be on one of these big shows, and then you realize that only when you actually are ready, you realize that you so weren't ready when you thought you were.
Totally. Yeah.
So how does one gauge when they should start just trying to, get on television, stuff like that? I mean, it seems like they asked you, but it is worth, almost chatting about how to know when you're in the right spot in your career to want to be on television, and how to know when you should probably get a tighter show and persona and whatever.
Well, here's the thing, is that I honestly believe that you don't decide when you're ready for TV. TV decides when you're ready. And
there you go.
The best thing that you can do is work on your show, work on getting yourself out there, expecting nothing to ever happen, and then being excited when it does happen. So you want to always just be working on yourself as an entertainer. Having goals is great, but you always need to make sure you're working on yourself as an entertainer, because when you're ready, other people will find you and let you know that you're ready, if that makes sense. Like, there's no way I could have said, it's time I do TV, I'm going to do Wizard Wars. It didn't work that way. I made sure that I worked at myself, my video, how my look was, my image, my philosophy, and they agreed that I was ready, and that's why I got that spot.
Right. It almost seems like it's better when your goals are not a result, but they're, the actual thing, right? Yeah. A goal to have an awesome 40-minute show is a way better goal than to be on Ellen, because there's a million outside factors on being on Ellen. Being on Ellen is a result of having an awesome show and being an awesome magician, right? Yeah. So it's just worth mentioning, because a lot of, even as you explained that it was such a boost for your career, it's important to give context to say that you were found. You were found because you were a great performer and with great original ideas, and that's how you made it to some of the world's biggest stages right now. Yeah. So definitely worth mentioning. Let's chat a little bit about touring. You've been touring with your show. We mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of the episode. What's that like? Who do you generally tour for? Talk a little bit about it.
I'd say the predominant thing I do is corporate. So I do company events wherever I need to do the company event. On top of that, I do cruise lines as well. And then I do some guest appearances in Vegas. So that's kind of the bulk of my work. I don't really tour a theater show. I do theaters, but I don't really sell my own theater show. It's more up to the smaller towns or the cities or whatever it might be that put it on, and they book me to come in and do the show. I've never been one for four-walling my own show. I've tried it twice, and it takes a very unique person to do it. Like Wes Barker kills at four-walling a show. His philosophy is incredible, and when I talk to him about it, it's like, dude, I don't know how you do that, or I don't know how you get it in you to do that, but It's not what I want to do. So
I know, it's incredible.
it
though.
is.
I like that he has an agent, and he, like in our episode, talks about how he still wakes up early on his off days to cold call people just because he loves that life.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy to me.
Yeah, he's a wacko. I love that guy. So yeah, that's kind of the bulk of what it is that I do. So I like knowing the venue I'm getting into. I always have my standard show that I do each and every time. Like I say, it's mainly corporate stuff. Like right now, this whole Christmas season's been filled with corporate, and
Right.
it's what I love to do. Cruise lines have been a new thing for me, and I'm learning the ins and outs of that and what works and what doesn't work, and I'm slowly falling in love with that as well. So, yeah.
It sounds like the key to touring with your amazing show on all the most amazing places and living the dream is having an amazing show
that people want to see.
to tour with, you know. But I think that's so awesome because you think about someone like you know, doing amazing things, and you know, one of the keys is to just be awesome, have an awesome 40 minutes, have an awesome hour, you know. And people are always working at it the backwards way to say like, oh, how do I get, if I only got on Wizard Wars, you know, that would, if I was only on Fool Us, then that would really be the next, the real big step for me. But the truth is it's the grit, and it's the coming up with you know, great quality magic and honing it till it's good. When did you feel, before the sort of big TV eruption, what did you feel was like the hardest part, the stuff that took either daily or weekly or whatever sort of grind to get to where you are? Was it cold calling? Was it repeatedly doing a show? What was the part you had to grind through?
I'd say there was two. It was getting the show that I was happy about selling, and then selling my show to people who have never heard of me before. Right. So I was never a cold caller. I hated cold calling. I know a lot of guys that rocked at cold calling as far as corporate goes, but I always tried to make sure that I had a really, really great show so that the result of my show at the very end was enough for them to tell people about, where they'd want to book me or tell their friends to book me, type of a thing. So I really relied on word of mouth more than anything, and I'm very fortunate that for many, many years that was the bulk of how I got my work, which allowed me to eat. And
which is incredible, by the way, you know, to be so good that you don't really worry about promotion so much as you worry about just being good.
But you know why it worked for me, though, is because I always made sure that I put a bit of myself into my show, like the violin stuff. I never just did the status quo magic stuff, because why should I hire you as opposed to this other guy? He's, you know, X amount of dollars cheaper. I'm just going to book him.
Yeah, well, you both do the coloring book.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm not in that position anymore. No one will ever just hire me because they're looking for a magician. They're going to hire me because they're want Chris Funk.
They're looking for Chris Funk.
Exactly. Right. And as magicians, I find we're probably the worst, where we look at a guy, do a trick, and say, well, I could do that. And you go and buy it, and you do it. And, like, we're all guilty of doing that at one point in our life, but that's the biggest mistake you could ever make. Because you have to look at, well, that guy's doing it because he felt that fit him. And if I'm going to do it now because I saw him do it, because I want to get the gigs that he's doing, well, you're just trying to be him and you're not trying to be you. If you can bring you to the table and kind of inject a bit of who you are into what your show, that's what people grab onto. Otherwise, you're just doing trick A, trick B, trick C, show is done, thank you very much. And please call me back next year. And they might not.
Right, and especially, you know, like you said, if you're sharing who you are, then it is even more so that they want Chris Funk and not a magician, right? Yeah. They're going to say to themselves, you know, like, a corporate group brings you in and they got magic and music, you know, and it's just not to say that, I mean, I don't know how much of your show is the violin, but it's just to bring up that it's like, it's the experience that you are bringing the audience, you know, it's not people being like, I love card tricks, like, yay. It's them saying like, oh, did you remember that? Like, we have to have him come back and do that again, you know?
Yeah, that's it's huge to do that. It's huge.
How did you said that the hardest part was crafting that show and selling the show.
Yeah.
Did you do anything other than just be really awesome to sell your show?
I made sure that my material that I put in front of people match the quality of show that I'm putting on,
Right.
and vice versa. I make sure that the quality of show that I have matches what I tell them and show them that I can do.
Right.
I'm so tired of seeing people say, Canada's foremost mentalist. Well, in a non-governed body, who said that? Some of the stuff doesn't match. It just doesn't make sense.
I think it's so funny. Every magician is Toronto's best magician.
I know.
Every magician has traveled the world with their magic.
Yeah, exactly. They did a
It's
trick on the airplane for a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Exactly.
I literally walked around a globe, and now I'm going to put this in my show.
Yeah. So, I forgot what my point was.
Screw them.
Fuck magician. Fuck these other magicians.
No, but that's the
was about
reality of
selling
it, is
the
that
show.
people say, Canada's foremost magician or the best magician in Winnipeg. I think there's a guy that actually says that, the best magician in Winnipeg. How do you take such a subjective approach to something and be so confident about it? I don't get that. So nothing about any of my marketing material says foremost, best, or anything like that. I let my audiences decide, and I just be honest with them about who I am and what I do. And it is apparent in all my videos, my website, and on my PDFs that I would send to a client.
It's like you don't buy the newest hip-hop album and it's like done by the best rapper in the world. Like, they're not trying to sell the hip-hop album on the album. You already got it.
Yep.
Like, it's just about the art itself.
Yeah.
So then, what do you use as, copy fuel or promotional fuel if it isn't saying that you're the best or the most amazing, or
Is
it just
tell them what
accomplishments?
I do?
Right.
I tell them what I do and who I am. And I make sure that I spice it up enough with good words that, they feel like they're almost experiencing the show without having watched it. And that's where I hire a writer. So I take my points, I give them points, and I say, write it. I'm fortunate that my assistant, who being a writer, watches my show every time I do the show. And so I could say, you know what, we need a new write-up. And he'll just take what he knows about my show and write it up. And it's like, okay, brilliant, let's take that. We'll change up a couple things and make it look pretty. And that's my copy right there.
Well, that's awesome, and it's the kind of thing that magicians don't even think about.
Yeah.
Is the copy that they're using to try to convert people. And it's only come to my attention recently. It always comes to my attention every time I redo my website.
Yeah.
That's when it comes to my attention, because I'm rewriting the thing I wrote and I'm going, what? This was supposed to sell people on my show? What am I, out of my mind? And then I write up something better, and then that goes until the next time that I do that.
Yeah.
So I think that it's really smart to, decide where in your magic, whether it's your show or your marketing, that you need professional help, and get it.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to actually do that. I think that if you're willing to spend $300-400 on a new bit, then you should be willing to spend $300-400 to sell that bit, so you make the money back of what you just spent money on, right? Like,
wow, what an obvious thing that no one even
Thinks
is
about
even
how
thinking
do we
about
make
it
it
all.
5 months into a podcast and not come up with spend the money on yourself and not your tricks?
Yeah, well, I mean,
do
like,
both. Why not? Like, if
of
you're
course.
willing
Well,
to,
yeah, of
that's
course,
the
yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
The point is that it's not like all about the magic and not at all about the promo, and it's obviously not all about the promo and not at all about the magic.
Yeah.
But you can't, break the bank on buying a new illusion,
Yeah.
and not tell anybody about it in an appropriate way.
Yeah.
Like, the reason why I think it's such an awesome point is because magicians do break the bank on the new illusion without a moment of hesitation. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy
Yeah.
to me that
Like
there's
new
like, I don't know
tech
that I
and
want to
new-
invest in a website. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm going to spend $600 on a color match or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%. One of the questions I have is you're mentioning a lot that you've got people that are working for you, which I think is awesome, and it's especially important the more people that you have doing the things that either you can't do or you don't want to do or they are better at you with, the more you can focus on the things that you are excellent at and fill more of your hours with that. My question is, how early did you start hiring people out, both full-time and part-time for parts of your business?
Let me think here. I'd say, like, there's that gray area where it's like, I need to make more money to hire these guys, but I need to hire these guys so I can make more money, right? Like, there's that catch-22 situation. So I think that what you need to do is just kind of start testing the waters a little bit and realize, okay, I can make my website, but I'm really tired with the words that I put together, so I'm going to just look around and see if I can hire someone, maybe outsource for $100. Can you write my website or write my ad copy for me? And you just kind of start doing it little by little. And I've realized by doing it that way that it has such tremendous value for me that I don't go to a show now by myself. I always come in with an assistant who carries my stuff for me, and I pay him a very good wage to set up everything and to be my assistant at my show, because it just makes life easier for me and it allows me to focus on what I need to focus on and get the job done better and put on that show that I need to put on. So finding the way, like how to kind of cross that gray area, it's different for everybody. You'll just know when you get there. If you don't want to spend a lot of money and you do have small, tedious little jobs where you need help on, that's where Fiverr.com is for, or Google.com, where you can actually hire virtual assistants who can do your admin. You can say, I need a spreadsheet made up of all my performances so I know how to pay my taxes, and they'll do that for you. Instead of you trying to pull your hair out at tax season trying to figure out how much money you're about to give away. So it's just little things like that. You just slowly grow into the position, realizing, okay, if I can do this, I can focus on this more. And if I can focus on this more, my product is better. And if my product is better, I can charge more. That's why it makes sense to do that now. And then you'll know.
100%. And it seems like, there's tons of different websites like, Upwork and Fiverr and stuff like that, where you can hire someone. And I like the approach of, just upgrading the next thing. Yeah. You don't need to hire someone to do everything. You don't need to hire 30 people. But whatever the thing is that you're either struggling with,
when you come to that block.
Makes you rip your gosh darn hair out, or it seems like you are just so bad at that there's no light in sight, that you hire someone for it. Yeah. And for me, that's been huge. I keep hiring people for the things that I need, and you sort of go through cycles of it where you hire people, and the next time around when you come back to making that promo video or writing copy for your website or doing new photos, it's your next opportunity to upgrade, right? It's your next opportunity to say, is this good enough? Is it better? Let's chat a little bit about the YouTube series that you've done, the Wonder Wednesday.
Yeah.
How has that been? Has it, because it's not been, one of the biggest YouTube magic things, but it's definitely caught some traction. And, anything that someone's willing to do, 50 weeks in a row or however many it ended up being.
52.
Was it 52? Was it a full year?
It was 50 in a row, and then I injured myself and I had to take a break, and then I did the last 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So anything for 52 weeks of content is going to attract some attention.
Yeah.
What was it like? Was it hard? Did you see any immediate returns, or was it just something fun to put up online?
It was just something fun to put up online. The only reason why I did it was to challenge myself. I wanted to get better at video editing. I wanted to get better at... I don't do a lot of close-up magic anymore. It's all about the stage show. So I kind of missed the whole hobby side of magic where I get to go buy a trick and play around with it and whatever. So this was just a really good moment for me to do stuff like that and explore the whole close-up stuff, the close-up side of magic. So it was just more for me to do it. It doesn't have a lot of views. I know there's a lot of videos in there where it's like, oh, why did I do that? But, I did it. It was a challenge for myself. And if other people enjoy it, awesome. If they watch it, awesome. And if they don't, awesome. I have a larger audience than I did back then now. And so I decided for 2017 I'm going to re-release them all as like a throwback Thursday to Wonder Wednesday type of thing. So I'm going to put them all back out on Facebook again and let people watch them. I might edit some of them down. Like I know the one where I did card through window on the airplane. There's 3 tricks in that one, and I'm going to remove 2 of the tricks because they're irrelevant. It goes back to that why am I doing it, and I feel they don't fit. So I'm going to remove that and just kind of get it to the meat of the actual video.
I would be very excited to see them re-released because I've watched a couple of them. I watched them when they were coming out, and some of them are really fun videos. And you're great on camera. So it's I was just surprised to see that not as many people were as engaged with it. So I'd be very excited to see the re-release because they were really cool. It was cool to see.
Yeah, it was fun. There was some good bits on there. It taught me a lot about being in front of a camera. That's for sure.
Was it some of your first experiences in front of a camera?
It was like I started doing this right after we shot the pilot of Wizard Wars. So I had never really just filmed magic for a camera. It was really interesting, actually. I went to Vegas in February after we filmed Wizard Wars, and I was chatting with Justin Flom about one of the tricks that I did in Wonder Wednesdays fooled him, actually. And so we were chatting about it, and he's like, you fooled the pants off me. I said, well, that's good, because I don't know how to do magic in front of a camera. And he says, that's all I know how to do is magic in front of a camera. I wish I knew how to do a show. And I said, that's all I know how to do is do a show, and I don't know how to do magic in front of a camera. So the whole premise of Wonder Wednesday was to really challenge myself, learn how to do magic in front of a camera, because I think I kind of got addicted to it when I was on set with Wizard Wars there. I realized how much I love it.
I am personally obsessed with the idea for a magician or for anybody, any voice online, to commit to doing something either daily or weekly or monthly or whatever. Like a commitment to doing something like that makes a huge, huge difference. And just this podcast, I mean, it's been going on for like 6 months or 7 months, and episodes come out every Thursday, and I now know how to edit podcast episodes, and I know a lot more about interviewing, and I've interviewed some of the coolest magicians I've ever wanted to, you know what I mean? So and it's so easy. The first couple whatevers you do online is bad. They're going to be bad. They're always going to be bad. But you are honing this skill, right? And whether the skill is being on camera and doing close-up magic, or the skill is, having good conversations, or whatever it is. A lot of the skills for some people are compelled to create magic weekly or daily or whatever in order to post them online, right? So people always, there's a lot of question about whether we should use the online world as almost self-motivation for us to do something, but I think 100%. I think if we can get great at something while producing great content for people to watch, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, Paul Vigil, a friend of mine out of Vegas, he had a quote once which I loved, and he goes, let me think about this here. It's been a while since I read it, but the premise of it just sticks with me. I perform magic for me, and if you enjoy it as well, that's awesome. Something along those lines. And like with Wonder Wednesdays, I did it for me. If people enjoy it, great. A lot of people didn't enjoy it. Great. I really don't care, because I did it for me, right? And that's a really unique approach. Like as soon as you start writing a show, it's like, I want to write this to be the best way to present me. And if they like it, cool. Because you can't please everybody all the time. So if you're out there trying to write something to please someone else, then it's kind of a difficult thing to do. But that was the whole premise, is I just put it up there for me. I did it to challenge me, and that's that.
It's amazing how often that comes up as a sort of best practice for your magic. It's just to create for yourself, do what you think would be awesome, do what you think would be great. And
I think that's what defines magic as an art for me. Because that's sort of what people say about art in general, is right, like, create for yourself, be creative on your own level, and don't, if you're gonna make hotel paintings, you're gonna make hotel paintings that are just sort of generic and whatever. And the same thing goes for your magic, right? Like, if you want to make something that's gonna really impact people, it has to really impact yourself.
So one of the things that we do when we wrap up the episode, because we're getting near the end, is we each touch on something from the episode, almost a take-home point that we think was particularly valuable, no matter where it came from, but just something that resonated with us. So I'll start. For me, I think that I really liked your approach to scripting and creating a show. You mentioning how you map everything out and you make sure that it really applies to you and it's about you, and the way to make sure that you have a show that is great really is to make sure you're not doing other people's tricks, because then people aren't going to say they really want Chris Funk. They're going to say they really want a magician. Yeah. Because that's basically what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So that resonated with me a ton, and I'm going to be looking into how to me-ify a lot of my tricks. Tyler, what about you? Anything particularly valuable from this?
You always nail exactly what I'm thinking about during our wrap-up. You always go first and steal it from me. But yeah, I think I have to do a lot of self-exploration, which I really like. I like that I can sort of not view that as selfish and be like, yo, this is actually going to help what I want to do. And the idea of connecting with people on a genuine level resonated with me a lot. Also, people who know Rick Lax call him Ricky, which I think is really cool. You and Justin Flom both did that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I don't know. It was just an inspiring interview in general. It gave me a lot to think about.
I thought so too.
Oh, good.
And what about you, Chris? Anything from the interview that you thought was particularly take-home point, whether you said it or we said it or anybody?
Yeah, I think that just in general, like if there's one thing I would like to reiterate, it's don't be afraid of being you and adding you into the mix. And more than don't be afraid of doing it, I encourage it, because that's ultimately what makes you memorable over the other guy. And if you can really spend time focusing on who are you, what do you do, and why, when you can get those three things nailed, then you're going to be on the path to creating a show that's memorable, that people are going to love, and that's going to help your career flourish.
And you know what? We talk a lot on this show about how to promote, even in this episode, but how to promote yourself and how to all that stuff. But I think one of the things that you said, which I think resonates best in what you just said, is, being you, getting people to want you to book you, not because you were paying the most dollars on your Google AdWord or whatever. It's because people want you year after year after year after year. And I have bookings that that I've been hired at for the last 5 years in a row, and it's because I'm able to spend the time there and show who I am, and really, they want me back. And
they're not booking another magician,
right?
If they find a cheaper one,
right?
They're paying the money for you.
I think that that's really the best advice, is kind of that Steve Martin, be so good they can't ignore you. Yeah. Because that's the only way. That's the only way, but with the added asterisks of almost be so you they can't ignore you, mm-hmm. right? So that they know who you are, and I think that's really awesome. Chris, with millions at least of magicians' ears listening to this, what would you like to tell them? Any PSA? We've had stuff from words of caution to encouragement to discouragement to anything. So. Anything you'd like to say with all the magicians in the world listening?
You mentioned Steve Martin. I'll do another Steve Martin quote where he has said, "Magic is the only talent you could buy." And it is true. And so my public service announcement would be, don't be that guy. Or person or girl. Don't be that person that, thinks because you bought a trick and you're Canada's foremost mentalist that you're that great. Like, really spend time investing in yourself. So.
Oh man, that is funny. I've never heard that.
Oh my god!
And I
getting
think
that tattooed on me today.
I think that it beautifully resonates with what we've been chatting about in this episode. And I think that's a great quote. You will see that quote on Instagram from Discourse and Magic very, very shortly.
Cool.
Chris, big, huge thank you for the episode. A lot of amazing, valuable stuff for me, in my selfish sense, but also for all the people at home that are listening to it and trying to get better, get performing, get up on their feet, and become awesome. Where can people find you on the big, huge online world?
On my website, chrisfunk.com, chrisfunkmagic.com. I think I have a bunch of URLs, but those are the two that'll get you there. Internationalmanofwonder.com. ChrisFunkMagic.com is pretty much me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Chris Funk Magic. Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Chris, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you. And a big thank you to everybody listening who made it 1 hour into an episode with no tricks. They all don't have tricks, but this one especially didn't have tricks. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Chris, so much for chatting with us.
You bet. Thanks so much, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We had a blast recording that. Chris Funk was just an awesome guy to talk to. I learned a lot about sort of putting myself into my magic, and was really inspired by a lot of the things he said, specifically that Steve Martin quote, as I'm sure you heard. How did you feel, Jonah?
I love that quote. I said we're gonna Instagram it. I worry that we'll get a big uproar on Instagram, but I think we're gonna do it anyways, just because I think it's so funny. I thought it was a great episode, and exactly what you said. It really drove home a lot of those points about the value and the importance of putting yourself in your magic. Other than that, if you want to participate in the conversation or watch any of the videos that we spoke about, head over to discourseandmagic.com/ep37, EP37, and you can do that for any episode, but of course for this one, that's where you can find all the videos, and there's of course comments at the bottom where you can share your thoughts and ideas on the episode. Other than that, big thank you, and we will see you all on episode 38. Wow, can I just marvel at the size of that?
You will next week.
Oh, no I won't. I'm done with the marveling. I'm done. My next marvel will 52? be at 52.
Yeah.
That's right. 52. Because that's the big...
Because you're a basic bitch magician, that's why.
I'm a basic bitch magician. That's exactly right. And I don't even feel bad about it.
Yep.
I don't even feel bad about it. See you guys later. 38. Wow, that's big. You'll never hear me say that again. 52. Bye.
Peace.